Hey, how's it going everyone? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review we are looking at the Play Arts Kai DC variant Batgirl. Long awaited, highly anticipated figure. She got delayed at least twice. I'm thinking it was 3 times though, but she is finally here and we get to take a look at her. Before we look at the figure really quickly, I just want to show you she does come with the now standard Play Arts Kai display stand. Not my favorite thing. I personally would rather the money went toward the figure, but it's still decent to have. That shows you how to build it. Over here we can see how the accessories work. We have kind of this little sword thingy that has a bit of a feature. I'll show you that. She has a batarang. This shows you the 4 different pieces for the cape. They're interchangeable, and that's how they go on, and interchangeable hands. So don't forget to look at that when you open up your figure. Now let's take a look at the figure itself. So we have a really nice looking figure here. I don't see really any problems with the design. I'm happy with it. Like I said, for the Batman one, the head looked a little off to me, and he had the grappling hooks on the cape. Even though I really liked the figure, those things just stood out as odd to me. There's really none of that going on here. Her cape does have a little bit of a styling to it. It has almost these feather-like qualities, kind of like the Gotcha Man or Gatcha Man series. I think that's the right one. It's been a while now. So the cape's a little odd. It's definitely stylized, but it still looks really cool and it still fits the character and it works nicely within this variant line of figures. So we also have some cool accessories. This is that sword type of thing I was showing you. It shows her holding it with this part facing forward, this part facing toward her, and then this part comes out to just kind of extend a little bit. Come on. Wow. I don't know why it's not coming out now. There we go. It has a little bit of a snap to it, so that pops out. I don't know if I really care for that design. It's a little, it looks like it's just on a little slider piece, so it's a little odd looking. I think it would be better if that was a solid piece of plastic, but no big deal. It's still kind of cool, and she can hold it. I don't have the hand in right now, at least one that's open or available. I think it looks better if she holds it facing this way, just because of the way this has kind of like a hilt effect to it, but the instructions tell you to hold it this way, which makes you kind of force this against the top of the hand, which that also looks good because this is the bigger part where it would be a blade, I guess. So either way works, but this kind of forces it against the hand. Just be aware of that. So speaking of the hands, we have a total of 5. We have 2 open hands, just kind of standard, relaxed, casual hands, 2 gripping hands. They can hold either the batarang or the sword. And then we have 1, it looks like a trigger finger hand, but it's really meant for the batarang, although the 2 gripping hands hold it better. But this, you can actually put the batarang in her hand, and she holds it fairly well, so that's pretty cool. And then of course we have the batarang, which we can look at. It does have the little copyright thing there, but it's really nicely sculpted, looks cool, and has some nice paintwork on there, so it's pretty nice. As far as the figure goes, she, like I said, she's really good. I did have a few issues with her though, and I don't know if it's just because it's like one of the first off the printing press, so to speak. But this leg was not in all the way. The lower part of the leg was not in all the way, so that took a little trimming with a knife to shove that in there properly. But now that it's on, it's fine. And then the only other issue I had, and I think this is just a fluke on mine, because nothing's actually broken and there's not really a problem, but sometimes after posing it a little bit, this butterfly joint can pop off, and as you can see, it's not broken. That's how it's molded. So I'm not sure if that's going to be a prevalent thing, a common problem, but if you don't really try to pull it off, you shouldn't really have any trouble, even if yours is the same as mine. So it's not a huge deal, but it's something to be aware of. We'll talk about the sculpt of the cape in a second, because I do really like that. But the figure stands. Now, she's not completely straight up and down. Her knees are bent a little bit right now, but she stands almost exactly 10 inches tall. So that makes her definitely in scale with all of the other figures. She looks really good next to them. I'll be showing you guys the my DC variants. Once I get it, I think probably Superman and Supergirl in, I'll just do a DC variant collection video for you guys so you can see them all together. But just know that she definitely looks good and fits in with them. The only paint issue I've seen so far, that's a real issue, is I just have a little spot of flesh tone right there. No big deal, I can fix that. And even if I didn't, not a problem. Then the only other thing which is pretty common on these kind of figures is they didn't paint the lip of the trunks, or whatever you want to call those. So there's a little bit of flesh tone on that. Again, you could fix it if you wanted to very easily, and if you don't want to, you'll probably never even notice it while she's posed. So that's fine. She does have a lot of nice shading throughout. This kind of blue, faded dark blue to black looks really good. It is throughout the whole figure. She blends in nicely, matches nicely with Batman. She's got a lot of these great little details of gold throughout. Some kind of like silver, dark gray shading. Everything looks really well done on her. I also really like the design. I like the sculpt. Surprisingly, they didn't show a lot of skin on this figure. Wonder Woman was virtually naked. This one has almost no skin showing, but I think that's fitting for Batgirl. She's not typically showing a lot of skin. Wonder Woman generally does, even outside of the variant line. So I think that's just fine, and I think it looks good, and I do really like the helmet design they did for her. I think that's really cool. It does look actually like a helmet sitting on her head because it's a separate piece of plastic. The face is a separate piece from the helmet, so that looks really nice. And you can see there that the detailing is done really, really well. No problems at all. The hair is shaded really nicely. It's sculpted. It is articulated. So let's look at the articulation. The head is on the standard double ball peg for DC for Play Arts Kai. And it doesn't have too much of a gap to worry about. You can find it every once in a while, but through standard posing it won't be too much of a problem. It'll look pretty good, and you can probably just finagle it a little bit to not be a problem. The hair is articulated. You can pull it out, so it's not going to break too easily on you. It's a very small peg though, so do use some caution, but it is ratcheted, and it swivels at both ends. Now, the sculpt of it is a bit of a hindrance in that the sculpt of the helmet and the hair, because even though you can pose it, you don't have a huge range of motion. You're mostly going to just get the up and down. When you try to turn it and rotate it, it just kind of doesn't look natural most of the time. But it's not so bad, and I do like that they made it articulated, so that's pretty cool. The shoulders are standard butterfly hinge, butterfly joint, plus the ball peg for the ball socket on top of that, so it can kind of move a little bit on top of the butterfly joint, but it's mostly just a swivel. It's not as much of a ball peg as some of the other figures have been, but we do have the standard ball hinge with this cup or cap that's connected to the bicep, so that hides the joint really well. I really like that feature. It does have the full bicep swivel, single jointed elbow, but you get a little bit better than 90 degrees, and it swivels at the top and at the bottom, so that'll help in posing. Also, the detail on the gauntlets looks really good. They did a great job with that. Tons of little sculpted details, and the paintwork is really nice, so I do appreciate that. And on top of that even, Batman had these kind of wrist covers connected to his hands, I believe. Hers aren't connected to the hands. They are a separate piece though, so you can rotate it with the hand. Even though it's a separate piece from the hand, you can spin that around, and you can't even tell that there's a seam there due to the sculpt work, so that is something I really appreciate. It looks completely natural, but if you need to rotate it to go with the hand, you can do that. And then the hand is on the standard ball hinge that the Play Arts figures normally have. So I can just pop that off to show you. Standard ball hinge, ratchets, and swivels at both ends. So that is nice because you can rotate this to fit with the hand however you want to. Posing will never be an issue with the hands. I love the way they did it on this figure. And we can take a closer look at the hands. Tons of detail in the sculpt work. Not the most paint on there, but they don't need it, so that's okay by me. Alright, let's put the arms down. Now here we do have a bit of an issue, as is kind of common for some of the more modern Play Arts figures. The upper torso joint is really lacking in the range of motion. It's a double ball peg, but I get the feeling, and I haven't pulled it apart to check, but I get the feeling that the ball peg is very, very short, because we don't have any range of motion. It just has a little bit side to side, a little bit front to back, not nearly as much as I would have liked. And it does rotate, but that is limited by the sculpt. So a little bit of a bigger ball peg, a little bit more hollowed out areas would have been nice. It would have given us a better range of motion. But you can still get her in some pretty decent poses. The lower torso is on a large ball peg that's connected to the upside down T-joint for the hips. So this has a full swivel. It's really stiff, but you can do it. It leans from side to side really far, and you can't see the gap, so that's something to point out. A lot of the times when you use that joint, there's a big gap, but the way her floating crotch piece is made, you can't really find the gap in her sculpt. So the side to side works really well. Leaning her backwards, no problem. Forwards, it's a little bit, well, backwards and forwards is a little bit limited. It depends on where the hips are. These go up pretty high, which is good because there's never any really gap unless you bring them all the way back and try to force it. But them going up high like that also bumps into the torso. So it's kind of like you want to make it better, but then it gets in the way, so it hinders something else. So, you know, you can't win for losing sometimes. But the floating crotch piece is done really well on this one. It's really seamless. It's not extra baggy like the 1970s Batman. It doesn't get in the way of anything. It matches the sculpt. The only issue I have is the belt. It's really big, but I think that's because it's just supposed to kind of sit a little bit lower on the hip, like that, kind of at an angle. At least that's the way it's glued on. That's kind of the way the sculpt looks too. So that's my initial thought, that it's supposed to just kind of hang there. So I'm okay with it. It looks fine once you get posing. You can see there is some nice detail going down her back for kind of like spine protection. So that's pretty cool. And she has a little bit of a booty. Little bit, not nearly as much as some people would like, I'm sure, but it fits the character and it fits the figure nicely. Hips are standard Play Arts hips. They ratchet forward and back. Watch out for that torso joint again. It can bump into that, but they go pretty far up once you get the torso out of the way, so that's pretty nice. Side to side, no problem at all. Ratchets all the way around. And it does have some rotation on there, not a whole lot, but it is there. There's no cut joint anywhere in the leg. Knees are double jointed as is normal for the Play Arts figures. Again, they still haven't gotten the knees down. Personally, I would have rathered they did the, I prefer the knee joints on Wonder Woman. That's what I'm trying to say. Even though they're just a standard ball hinge, they look a lot better than this kind of clunky design. But they are double jointed, so you can get the legs all the way back if you want to. And they do a decent job of being hidden once they are all the way straightened out, or even just a little bit bent. They still look pretty decent. No problems there. The boots have really nice design and paintwork on there. Kind of reminiscent of Thor with this kind of gunmetal, but still looks really cool. Fits back row, no problem. This piece here is a really soft plastic, so don't worry about that getting in the way. And then we just have the standard ball hinge. It is a little bit limited going backward, but going forward we really don't have too much trouble. And then you can rotate that around for an ankle rocker if you need it. So that's pretty cool. The heels on her are much stiffer and much better done than, I can't talk guys, I'm sorry. I'm working on almost no sleep again, but I'm trying anyway, so bear with me here. The heels are much better than Wonder Woman's. They're a little stiffer and they're much more flat, I guess is the word to use. They just work much better. It's easier to stand her without any issues at all. And then the gold looks really great. So that's the basic rundown of the main part of the figure. Let's look at the cape. She has this kind of cowl piece like Batman always has. It's molded in here so it looks like it's tucked into those little panels. Looks great. Sculpt work is great. I'll just try to not smack my camera around while I'm doing this. Again, the sculpt work carries over to the back nicely. The design here, instead of just being kind of cut off like some of the Arkham figures had, this really fits the design nicely. The only problem is it's glued down rather low, so it's a little stiff, but they only did that because they put the ball hinges pretty low on the back due to, I guess, where they had to fit them in. But she does have these standard ball hinges just like the other Batman figures do with the articulated capes. So those swivel at both ends and are ratcheted. You see the cape has this nice yellow with shading on it, and you can of course move it around however you want to put her in some cool poses, no problem at all. Look kind of like a butterfly like that or something, I don't know. But you can swing this one around too, just kind of manipulate that, and then you have more of a cape look. You know, it's just, I'm not posing it really well right now, but you can get the idea. And then I can throw the other cape on just to show you. It's more of a windswept or dynamic pose for the cape. You want this one that's really curly to go on her right side, your right side too if you're looking at it from behind, which I always recommend. There goes the arm I told you about. Sometimes it does come off. Hopefully that's not a common issue. So there we have the cape that looks kind of like she's spinning or doing a kick or something, who knows. And of course you can pose that also. You can bring that around so it's not quite so far out there. Tuck that under there. But you know, that's definitely meant for a more dynamic pose. And it does look good though, I think. So it's nice that they included it. I am not a fan, you guys should know by now, I'm not a fan of cloth capes. And so the Superman and Supergirl figures that look like they're coming with cloth capes, I would much rather have a cape like this, but we'll see how it goes. This one does work really well, and I think I'd prefer that, but we'll see. Those ones might be really good, so I'll let you guys know once I have them. But for now, all we have is this one. She was the one that was supposed to come out with Flash, who came out a while ago, and we'll just put it in like that for now. So now we're all caught up, and hopefully we get the other ones without having too many delays in the meantime. So there it is, guys. There is the DC variant Play Arts Kai Batgirl. I recommend it 100%, even with the flaws I found with the arm popping off and the leg not being on quite all the way. I don't think those are going to be common throughout, and I think they are probably worth bearing with, because this figure is just really, really well done. If you were looking into getting the Batgirl, then don't hesitate. Go ahead and pick it up. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more figure reviews, custom figures, and other good stuff. And in the meantime, keep collecting.